Through the generous contribution of Dr. Lewis's family, we're very fortunate to be able to share with you these timeless recordings of Dr. M. W. Lewis, a self-realized American yogi. Dr. Lewis was Paramahansa Yogananda's first American disciple and dearest personal friend. The wisdom Dr. Lewis imparts through these teachings will give you a dynamic and practical insight into the ancient science of yoga as taught by Paramahansa Yogananda. This lecture's title is How to Concentrate and was delivered in Hollywood, California on April 8, 1956.
This morning, how to concentrate. I got thinking about that coming up in the train, and I just couldn't get anywhere. Showing that it's a problem. Well, then I said, now listen, this won't go on. You've got to tell them something about how to do it. And then I realized that the greatest thing to aid us in concentration is to realize that the presence of God is in us as consciousness and energy. And that presence, the power of that presence is unlimited if we can but somehow join our seemingly limited powers of concentration with the one eternal power of God within us. Then we surely can concentrate. First, what is the definition of concentration? It means, according to the dictionary, to converge toward a center. We say, of course, to one point thing. To converge toward a center. To intensify. If your forces are scattered, of course the power is scattered. If your forces are intensified toward one point, then the power is intensified. And so it is with concentration. Concentration is that power or that ability to gather our forces together in one point then that we are able to use the extreme power which lies behind our consciousness and energy. We take the forces of nature. We have good examples there. We take the electromagnetic forces of nature, and they are quite quiet and unobserved until you see that great streak of lightning. Then the power is concentrated. That tremendous power is brought together in one point with tremendous force. We have the same thing in an ordinary generator. The magnetic power is there all surrounding the generator, but when it unifies it, intensifies it, gathers it together in one place, so to speak, through its power as a generator, then we light cities and we perform all sorts of things by that concentrated power. Take the power, water power, for instance. Things that come to my mind, the power of the mighty ocean. It just seems to travel along, but when you obstruct it, or when you gather it together, then you have extreme force. There is a place down in Nova Scotia, perhaps some of you know Nova Scotia. There's a place called the Bay of Fundy, and that great power of the ocean is gathered together and directed up into this narrow bay, and what happens? They have a tide of 60 feet there. Tremendous power. Because that power of the ocean is gathered together and directed, intensified. Likewise with rivers. The one that comes to my mind is Boulder Dam, where that power of the Colorado River is gathered together in that Lake Mead. And then it is intensified, directed through those various channels, producing wonderful results. So do we. We must intensify the power within us, gather it together, and through concentration direct it as we would have it directed. With our forces are scattered. We must gather them together, direct them, so that we can bore in through the spiritual eye of which we have spoken at the Christ Center, bore in through into the soul within, which is found within us in the spinal region and the thousand-rayed lotus of the brain. We must gather our forces that we may concentrate them, one-point them, that we have enough power to supersede this outward worldly diffused consciousness with the one eternal consciousness, the presence of God within us, in the spine and in the brain. We have that power because we are God's children made in His image. Now let us take a practical illustration, for instance, about concentration. You take a magnifying glass, of which you are familiar. And what do you do with that magnifying glass? You concentrate, you one point, you intensify the heat rays of the sun. Now, those rays under ordinary conditions, as we have today, or even in the desert, that's not too unbearable. But when you concentrate it together, concentrate those rays like you do in the magnifying glass through the center of the magnifying glass, you produce tremendous heat. Why? Because you gathered those scattered rays, concentrated them, and one-pointed them with the resulting power, that you can burn things, and you all know the effect of the concentrated heat rays of the sun through the ordinary magnifying glass. I was reading in the paper just the other day that they have a solar furnace. The Air Force has a solar furnace somewhere out in New Mexico, I believe, where they concentrate by a system of mirrors. Imagine it. The rays of the sun, the heat rays of the sun, to such an extent that they produce a temperature of between 7,000 and 8,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I looked. I thought that was 700. 7,000 to 8,000 degrees. Talk about Hades. We don't have to go there. Go to New Mexico. Imagine. Why? Why can they do it? Because the whole power of the sun is behind it. Do you see? And so behind that magnifying glass is the whole power of the sun. We utilize just a little of it. Now, friends, so with us.